Hey guys, we just had our video feed stop on us, so we're going to go ahead and continue this with a part two. People will be getting notifications about this on YouTube in a minute. I've got my panelists coming back here, so we're going to go ahead and just give it a minute before we fire back up. I just sent the links back out to everybody, and I want to apologize for that it just cut out. What I'll do is at the end of the episode we were just watching over there on YouTube, I will go ahead and post a link. So it'll take you over to here, and we'll go ahead and continue the discussion. So what we were talking about is essentially where we were, when we first heard about 9/11, when the attacks happened. And I'm going to wait for the guests to come back here. I went ahead and sent them the invites. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about where I was and how it impacted me and so on. On September 11, 2001, I was in my classroom. I was 4 weeks into my teaching job. And I had a few kids that would come in the mornings, and I would have the news on, and we'd watch the news. They'd come in like 7:45, and just hang out and chill. They had me for first period class. They were in there just chilling. And, the news broadcast came on the air, and we saw that happen. And they were confused about what was going on, and we were just trying to take it all in. And so, we were sitting there, and then they showed the second building, and, and everything was going on. And what kind of was crazy about all this is the boys that were in there. There were three of them. They were fairly young at that point, and when they graduated, they actually all three of them joined the military. And I never did ask them if that day had an impact on them. It was basically an Army, Air Force, and I believe Marines is where the three boys went off to. So I think that might have influenced a generation of young people to join the military after watching that attack. And I mean, what was crazy about that from my perspective is, I'm 4 weeks into a first year teaching job, and I've got a class of 30 kids. We're getting emails from the front office, just keep your students calm, just teach your classes today, just try to maintain, a normal environment. And it's like, how can you, because they don't understand what's going on. We didn't have a lot of information. And, every so many minutes, there was another building getting hit or another plane going down. And I'm wondering if this was going to end, how this was going to end, what was going to happen. I know Night Strike had made a comment earlier thinking that there might have been some sort of an invasion or something. Cause depending on the type of attacks that we were having. The only time I really got a little worried that day, and part of it was distance. I was a long ways away from the East Coast where these attacks were happening, we're out in the middle of Nebraska. And, but when they said that they put the president on Air Force One and they were flying him to Omaha, I'm like, oh man, this is it. Something serious is going down right now. And I'm assuming it was obviously for his own security, but that pretty much hit me. So, we do have a generation of young people that did experience this in school and probably understand the impact of it better now than they did before. But the young people today, if honestly, I can't tell you if 9/11 is in modern history books in school. I don't know how they explain it. I'm not a history teacher. I haven't seen a history book. Kind of curious how they portray it and what they say about it. But it is something that young people do need to learn about. And Single Shot made a very important point about that. Squib, we're going to come back to you because you were talking to us about your day and what had happened, and just the paranoia it created, the sense of confusion, the fact that we had technology at that time that just couldn't quite host everybody's needs. The cell phones were down. I'd gotten emails from people, saying, "Hey, are you okay? Is everything okay?" My family was checking in with me. I was getting phone calls. Squib, what else happened that day for you? How did that start to change you as a Marine, as a military service person? How did that impact you, Squib?
Really, the biggest thing was, when they said the Pentagon got hit. That was right then and there. You don't hit the Pentagon. You just don't. I said on the previous stream there before everything got the plug got pulled. People seem to think that there's some secret hatch on the top of the building in a missile system or Sea Whiz or something will pop up, and that's fiction. That's not real. There's very little as far as air defense anywhere in the country. Our ready alerts.
Scrambled jets, right? Yeah, that's all we can do is scramble jets.
So they actually scrambled F-16s from Selfridge, which is north of Detroit, to intercept Flight 93, and they didn't quite make it to Pennsylvania. All the way across Pennsylvania. Well, it's not even that far across. They crashed in eastern or central Pennsylvania, but they had orders to ignore the over the United States. You can't fly supersonic. They said forget that. As a matter of fact, the F-15s coming out of I forget the air base in Massachusetts that we're heading down to Washington D.C. The guy said, "I don't care how many windows you break, get there." All right, now you're talking about pushing Mach 2.5. They're not allowed to do that typically, but it was that bad, and there were so many planes that hadn't come in yet, and they had the international flights. They were trying to figure out what to do. They had the one airport in Canada right there on the coast, and they were landing planes there that the airport wasn't designed to land, and they're literally just stacking them up on the ramp and on the taxiways, and there's pictures of these big airliners at this small airport, and it's like, how are we going to even get them lined up to take off again? And when are they going to leave? But these were all questions that nobody had answers for, 2-3 days afterward. But on the day of, a lot of people, I don't know what it would have been like to be on an airplane that day and not know why we're diverting. And when you get to the airport, it's like, what do you mean we were under? Because back then they did have air phones and stuff, but it wasn't like it is today. So, we all had limited information, but that was the thing that just was so heavy on me was they just hit the Pentagon. It's like, you don't hit the Pentagon, despite the fact that there's no missile defense system around it. You just don't hit the Pentagon. And I thought for sure we were going to have more attacks, whether it be aircraft or, vehicle bombs or suicide bombers, or I thought this was going to be kind of like Tet, right? Attack everything, attack all at once. There was a report later about the fact that on a flight to Seattle, they found some of them box cutters stuffed between the seats. That was a false report, but it came out later, when they figured out that these guys were using box cutters to take over the plane. And there were all kinds of other things that came out later that, later found out, no, this wasn't true. It was an exaggeration. It was, there were just so many things. Really, the day of was shocking. It was stunned. Everybody was stunned and in disbelief. But it was the following days that really kind of the country really came together. And that's what I was talking about when the live stream got cut. Was today, I don't believe people would come together. If this happened today, I think there would immediately be finger pointing, people trying to blame, oh, you and your people caused this. No, your administration caused this. No. It was because of you and and I think that if there was a stranger laying in the street that needed help, somebody, would ask them who they voted for before they decided if they were going to pick them up. Or
they just put their phone out.
Yeah. And I understand that, back then there really wasn't video capability on. I had said it in the other show there that, I had an analog StarTAC at the time.
Yeah.
But
like an old Nokia,
Yeah, but still, it's the whole people today wouldn't. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that people today would step up and be Americans, real Americans, patriots, and say America first, our people first, our national defense first. They'd roll up their sleeves. They would say, we're going to rebuild. We're going to, you had talked about but earlier about what parents could do for kids that were born after this or too young to remember this, to try to let them understand. I took my kids to New York City. We went to the memorial. We were quiet and we were respective. You could see what they had done as far as the new building, how they had tried to put in provisions so that they couldn't use vehicle bombs against it, right? Yeah. And you could look up there. We weren't going to go up inside that day, but maybe if we go back to New York City, we might go up inside the building because I think there's a restaurant or something at the top on the observation deck, so you can look down. But you could see where they had put up the new one. You could see where the two old ones were. It kind of surprised me. The footprint of the buildings were much smaller than what I pictured. They were all height, not girth, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But they've got the memorial there, and they've got so many things there, and just walked around, and it was just kind of somber. And that was what? 16 years after it, right? And we haven't gone to the Flight 93 Memorial, even though that's closer, and we plan to do that. But that's a way that you can take your kids to see things like this. And it's not just about the Statue of Liberty and Central Park. It's also, this is where America got it. It'd be the same thing as if your family took a trip to Hawaii. Why wouldn't you go to Pearl Harbor, where you can actually still put your fingers in the holes in the buildings from them getting strafed, right? And you can be at the Arizona and look at the Missouri, or go on board the Missouri and look at the Arizona, or vice versa. Where the war started and where the war ended are next to each other today. And I think 9/11 for us was Pearl Harbor for our grandparents. And we could watch this stuff on documentaries. We can see the stuff in movies. We can read it in the history books. But we weren't even a thought. We weren't around for that. So we don't know what the country felt like. And they didn't have the instant communication we had. They didn't have CNN and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So it was probably a different feeling. But if you notice, the country mobilized and people made sacrifices. They rationed things. People who had never left their hometown went across the ocean to another country to fight. And I'm sure there was all kinds of things in the background that if you dig deep enough into history, you'll find people who profited off of this and were scumbags. You'll find people who were divided. Even though prior to the attack, there was a movement in the country to be isolationists, and it pretty much dissolved right after Pearl Harbor, right? So the country can be divided. The country can have people in there that aren't patriotic, but for the most part, the country came together. And that's the sense that we got after 9/11. And I remember when we went into Iraq, the Marines there, when they liberated one of the cities, they raised the American flag like they did at Iwo Jima. And an officer told them, take it down. And I understand why he did it. And that's what officers are there to do. They're supposed to understand the big picture that the grunts don't. They were trying to relive that patriotic act that those Marines and that corpsman did during the battle on Mount Suribachi in Iraq as a patriotic act. They weren't doing it in any other way. But the whole thing is, we're here as liberators. We're not here as conquerors. This is an American territory. That was a different thing. But that was, and then, we had the same thing. We had the firefighters raising the flag at ground zero in the same sense, and that picture is out there, and it was the same. And that was us remembering our past, us remembering the people that came before us that made sacrifices and did what they did to make this country not just a superpower, but to protect the world and to ensure our freedom today. And there were still people that remembered that, even though they weren't alive for it, that wanted to emulate that and wanted to pay tribute and wanted to keep that American patriotism alive. And today, I just don't see that. I honestly don't. I could see somebody like you saying, whipping out the camera. They do it as a photo op. They wouldn't do it to pay homage or to say, we're trying to live up. We're trying to fill those shoes. We're trying to live up to those standards. It's so disappointing as a patriot and as a veteran to see our country not in a place where we could deal with 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or take your pick all over again. But I remember 9/11 in the same way my mom would tell stories about being in school and remembering when Kennedy got shot. That's something for her. She remembers that day, even though, they didn't have a TV on in the school. She's coming home from school and two kids told her and she didn't believe them, went home, and there it is on TV, and it stayed with her for the rest of her life. And I think all of us, 9/11 will stay with us for the rest of our lives.
I agree with you, but I don't know if I agree 100% about what you say about people not coming together. And I'll have a question for Single Shot here in a minute. So Jason Stewart's joining us. Jason, what's going on, man? How you doing today?
Good morning, everybody.
Oh, Jason.
So we're having a discussion today, Jason. Where were you when 9/11 happened? What were the thoughts that you had? I don't know how old you are. Were you a young person? Were you in school when this happened? We got a few people chiming in on the YouTube side that were kids, like AWAG out there said he was 5,
I was right around 30.
Okay.
And I was on my way to work, and I had stopped in a a little gas station I'd never been before, you know, in the direction I was traveling, and they just happened to have a TV on, and I stood and watched, you know, for a few minutes, and I ran back out to the truck and I started telling my worker that, hey, you know, turn the radio on, and we sat there and listened for a little while, and well, you know, of course, you know, we clued in all day and we went to work, and we quit work early. We just had to go home and see the TVs and stuff.
Yeah.
I I remember, and I can, you know, distinctly remember me sitting in the car seat, and the things that I was thinking. Um, and to be quite honest, I had like selfish thoughts. I knew what had just happened. I knew we were at war, and I knew what was going to happen. And I was kind of at a point in my life where I was looking to make changes and be better and look toward the future. And at that moment, I just felt like everything in my world just got put on hold.
Mhm.
I wondered, I knew our job market's going to go down. The economy's going to go down. We were at war. You just like life got put on hold. I just saw it coming, you know, and that's kind of selfish, but I was thinking about how is today going to affect myself. And like other people, I was stunned, you know, at first. And then I think I know I did. I became angry. I became angry at this.
Mhm.
And, you know, 20 years later, I think I'm still angry because I'm still confused.
Yeah.
Of how to feel about today.
Yeah. Well, and everybody had a different connection to it. Everybody had a different impact, you know. So we say, if something like this happened today, do we think that we would see people come together? I mean, we still see, as a country, we still see ourselves come together when we have natural disasters. You know, we have people that we send to help out, and other states have other people they send out when there's hurricanes and flooding and all the aid that comes into places and so on. So single shot, the question I have for you is, you're an East Coast guy, okay?
Yeah.
You know New York, New Yorkers. Is there kind of
Mm.
this bond that brings New Yorkers together when there is times of terror, frustration, is there, do you think that New Yorkers would come together? Obviously, the first responders would be there because that's what they do, right? Would New Yorkers come together again if we had this happen again? What do you think? Because I mean, I think maybe it's a different mentality when everybody's together in this little box, that everybody's got their lives. You don't have to be nice to each other, but if something happens that affects everybody, because you hear stories about people lifting cars off of people, you know, when there's accidents or people running in to help people. What do you, because I mean, to me, what do you think? What are your thoughts on something like that if something like this happened again?
I don't think that they will ever forget it like the rest of us. But the camaraderie situation, I agree with you. I don't think that they would actually have those.
There will be people that won't do anything. You know, they'll stand there and film it. You know, you've always got those sheep. Yeah.
And you know, I just don't think that they will pull together like that, which is sad. I mean, in a national emergency to that magnitude had all over the country, they don't pull together like we used to. We lack that because we've been so divided by this government that people are at the level as, well, yeah, it's sad, but I can't do anything. That's the attitude that I run into. The biggest thing that I could say, Travis and everybody, is Maine is one of the states that's directly connected because those people.
Hey, Single Shot, you're breaking up. We'll have to wait till we get you reconnected again. So looks like we're having some tech issues today. So So maybe it's not there. Maybe that connection is just not there. Again, we got a lot of
flying
comments.
to
Oh, there you go.
Logan
There you go.
Airport, racist folks. But I don't trust any of those nationalities. I don't trust any Asians now with this coronavirus that's going on. I don't. I'm sorry. When you bring mass murder to another ethnicity for no reason, I have issues with that, and that's something that I'm going to have to try to get over. But watching my brothers and sisters die in those towers, and the remains, there's still a bunch of remains that have not been claimed. What is wrong with these people that they can't take DNA? Okay, I realize, okay, not everybody had DNA tests. I get that. But at least pay homage to those people that sacrificed their lives to the hands of terrorists. And the reason why I bring up terrorists is we've had terrorist attacks in this country all over the place. And we're still allowing those people to walk free. I disagree with that strongly.
Yeah, it could be interesting to see what's going to happen with the change in Afghanistan, if that's going to sprawl into something else down the road.
It will. I guarantee you. It will. I guarantee you.
Let's check out some of the comments. We've got firefighter 09100 is going to join us here pretty soon because he's got kind of an interesting story to tell us how it affected him personally when he was little.
No.
Younger person. Defense Dad says it was a surreal day. So again, everybody has their own emotional response to 9/11. You can't expect everybody to react the same way. So some of the comments we're going to see here, don't hold it against that person. These are just the feelings that people had, right? X Adam 1 says the government doesn't divide the people. They don't have that power. We need to think for ourselves and hold each other accountable. I don't know. There are things that sometimes the government says and does that light people up and cause them to act sometimes in a negative way. Misfits Darling says, I'm in upstate New York. Here, at least, we still come together. I saw a motorcycle accident a few days ago on the highway, and there were probably 15 vehicles pulled over to block traffic and help. I see that on Interstate 80 when I go out west. It's probably one of the deadliest roads in Nebraska. It's ridiculous to say it, but it's true. And there's always accidents on I-80, and there are people that pull over to help. Maybe not so much for the flat tires, but if there's a car on its top, you'll see people roll into the – because what it is we've got a two-lane divided interstate with no fence between the oncoming traffic. There's no fence between the two lanes. So there's always people that fall asleep and go across the road. There's accidents where people slide and go across the median and hit people head on. So I've seen a lot of accidents in my time because I used to take the route every week for a year. And you see that, maybe it's a Nebraskan thing. People jump out and help. I've done that a couple times myself. Back to 9/11. Defense Dad says, I know we were freaking out here. The news was speculating possible next targets and very close to Offutt Air Force Base. And we house that facility that Air Force One practices mid-air refueling. Yeah, Nebraska has a huge connection to national defense. Rolling Trip says, I was 22 standing at a coffee truck in Canada and listening to the radio when the second plane hit. We got the call to get home as soon as possible. Crossing the border at Niagara was insane. A long, quiet drive. Fubar says, was having a bowl of cereal, watching the morning news before class in my first year of college. In Memphis, I didn't know what to think. Then I watched as the second plane entered the frame and hit. It was almost like you were watching a movie. It's like, I'm like, is this real? Is this real? When I saw the building on fire initially, I thought it was just a structure fire. I didn't realize that there was a plane. And then they showed the clips again, and then they showed the second plane hit. It's like, oh my God, what is going on? AWAG says, I don't think people will come together. Like Squib said, they'll ask you who you voted for and then decide if they want to help. It's sad that we've become this way. If we have, in fact, become this way, not everybody. But I still think there's a lot of good people out there in this world. But X Adam 1 says, maybe I'm callous, but I didn't get all misty-eyed. I was more like, damn, that was intense. I got sick of everybody politicizing it quick, fast, and in a hurry. People taking advantage of the emotions and trying to use it to sway political opinion. Misfits Darling says, I think our country is less divided than portrayed. So, everybody has their own opinion about how they feel like we are right now. Here, let's add firefighter real quick. AWAG says, I was 5 when this happened. I witnessed this happen. I was too young to comprehend it, though. So, again, we're looking at somebody who's, 25, 26 years old. might not understand what happened that day. They might have seen it on the news. I remember seeing things when I was a little kid, disasters that happened, attacks that happened, and not understanding the impact that it had on a national level, because I grew up in the 80s. I mean, I was born in 77. So in the 80s, I saw things happen, but I didn't know what was going on. Didn't always get the explanation from my parents. Firefighter, you've got an interesting story to tell us. How did 9/11 impact you? Because it impacts your username right now with us in StreamYard. What happened to you?
Oh, let's see. It was 20 years ago, so I was in the 5th grade.
Oh.
And
okay.
So our principal comes in. I remember even the elementary school. It was John Muir up in Parma, Ohio. Comes in, tells the teacher something. We're in the middle of our spelling lessons, and we're like, okay, what's going on? Why is the principal here? Teacher runs out, comes back with the radio, turns it on to the local AM news station, and that's when we start hearing something had happened. I didn't get to see nothing like video-wise until I got home after school, saw it on the TVs, and I look at my older brother, I'm like, what's going on? Because just the year before, I was down in Texas watching my cousin graduate from basic training for the Air Force, and I'm going, bro, what's going on? And he's like, honestly, I can't tell you. Fast forward to my junior year of high school, I said, you know what? I'm going to do my part. I went and traded my junior and senior year of high school to become a certified firefighter and EMT. And even though I'm not active duty anymore, I still carry the weight of it to this day, 20 years later. It influenced me to go get the training, to go be a part of the nation that is there for everybody in the time of need.
Yeah.
And interesting fact, I didn't learn until after I graduated from the fire academy. United 93 flew over my elementary school before it crashed in Pennsylvania.
Oh, the route that it was taking before it went down?
Yep, because they lost track of it at Cleveland Hopkins when they turned off the transponder. That's when they did the loop around. Really opens your eyes.
And again, I really think people your age, or maybe people that were middle school or high school, I think it had who realized what happened. I really think it had a huge impact. Like I mentioned when we went live the second time, how I had students that had gone off and joined the military after seeing that happen, and it did have a huge impact on them. A few more comments coming in on the YouTube side. Misfits Darling says New York Outcast was driving to Bethesda, Maryland, and one of the hijacked planes flew very low over him. X Adam 1 raises a good question, and I want to maybe talk about this for a minute. X Adam 1 says, I recall asking the question why, and so many people didn't want to have that discussion. Why did this happen, right? I wanted to know why they attacked, and it was too taboo to question it for some reason. I guess the question I want to ask here is American involvement in world politics responsible for anything that comes back to us? I guess that's a question I want to ask. I mean, absolutely. I know we feel like we have to do our part to be the world's police force, right? But I sometimes wonder if maybe we shouldn't just keep to our own business. The world's going to happen. And every time we go get involved in somebody else's business, and I understand there are people that are suffering around the world that need us because there is evil out there. But at what point do we get selfish and just worry about ourselves because we have enough problems on our own soil to deal with? And I just say this after watching, 20 years of war and stuff. And I'm not losing my sense of patriotism, but sometimes do we just need to put America first and worry about ourselves? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Sometimes we have to. We have to do that right now because our country is in serious jeopardy. Serious jeopardy. A lot of people, no, we're not in trouble. We're not. You people better wake up and smell a coffee. Because I'll tell you, you don't want to see this country become socialist or communist. That's not the way things go. That's not what this country was designed for. It's not what generations of our forefathers fought for. So where are your priorities? You know, this is a bad situation. You know, I even saw it down to the magnitude when I was in Georgia. There was talk about somebody stealing those crop dusters down there, loading them with poison and flying them over stadiums full of people. You want to see farmers come together? There was 24-hour shifts on those airplanes if they had them, and they were chained down. Those people were serious. Somebody come onto that property, God be with them, because they would have buried them. Because those people did not play games. You hear talk about that, you get yourselves prepared. You protect those aircraft. And that's exactly what they should have done. I don't know if there could have been or should have been any more preparation or whatever. We've done a lot of preparation, but we never expected anything like this of this magnitude to happen. And the impact, I really think, even to myself, I'm still astonished at it. I cannot sit down and watch those movies. I have not seen Flight 93. I can't handle it. When you sit there watching TV and you watch 379 brothers and sisters get crushed by a falling building, that has a serious effect on you.
Yeah.
Something you never forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, Squib. I mean, Single. Sorry. Just feeling the emotions today. Because I just, right before Travis started up the chat, I ran up to the local fire department to pick up my Tunnels to Towers Foundation race packet. And we have our local 9/11 memorial there, and everybody's just there, placing flowers, showing respect. And you can't help but feel that emotion. Like, the day after, 9/12, there was no Republican, no Democrat, no nothing. There was just Americans. And I agree with Single Shot. We might never see that unity ever again. And it's sad.
Here's what MKJO says. Americans of all creeds died on 9/11. I mean, the fact that we had Christians, Protestants, people of all backgrounds, ethnicities, Jewish people, Muslims,
Islamic people died that day.
Thousands, right? You'd think that would have been the thing that said, okay, we could all be a potential target in this country. Now you can see that not one of us is safe, you know, even if we're killed by one of our own, right? So you would think that would have done something to maybe bring the country together or to unify the country. And, you know, maybe the media had a lot to do with that not happening, or I don't know. It's yeah, I mean, that's an important point to make up, is we had people of all different backgrounds, you know, helping each other the next day. And unfortunately, it took a disaster like that for that to happen.
Let me be more specific.
Yeah.
Islamic people died that day that weren't the terrorists. You know, here's the thing. I can understand not liking the ideology. I can understand not liking the individuals. I can understand condemning the action. I can understand a lot of things. But despite the fact that there are people here that I don't agree with, and people here that are not patriotic, and people here that honestly I think you're better off leaving the country than staying here and trying to make it worse. But it's your right to stay here because you were born here, or you've gone through the channels to become a citizen. That's the thing about our country. I don't know if you want to call it irony or whatnot, but you have the freedom in this country to be against the freedom in this country. And I served to ensure that you have the right to burn that flag, even though it infuriates me, or some of this other stuff. And it's unfortunate, but if we start restricting those freedoms, then we go down a path that the country isn't what it's all about. And despite the fact that you may not agree with somebody else, or despite the fact that you may not, okay. For example, there's lots of people out there with conspiracy theories about 9/11. It's been one of the things that's made me sick about it. Oh, the government has all those people on those airplanes hidden away in some secret camp somewhere, and they flew the plane to remote control into the building. Oh, that wasn't a plane that hit the Pentagon. It was a cruise missile. Oh, the towers are still there. They made it look like they came down because they used big mirrors like David Copperfield. And there are people that still believe this garbage to this day.
I don't understand what kind of a human being you are to think something
and that infuriates me more than the people that, say other things. There's people out there, America got what they deserved. It's like, no. But the thing is, they have that right in this country. They have the right to believe that. They have the right to say that. They have the right, and despite the fact that it ticks me off. But here's the thing. When I was in Somalia, I was looking around and noticed that these people will kill each other over nothing. They had no sense of patriotism. They had no sense of the national identity. They had no. These people were just. I was like, why are we here? Why are we here? I even talked to one of the officers about it, and he explained to me why we were there, and it was a really big picture thing, right? And I began wondering, is this what Dad felt when he was in Vietnam? He's, going, why are we here? These people hate each other. These people don't care. In these other countries, people don't have that national identity that Americans have. They don't have that patriotism, that roll up your sleeves and let's work together and resolve this. Then we'll go back to arguing, right? They don't have that, but they also don't have our background. And some of these countries have been around a lot longer than America. So you think they'd have their act together, but they don't. And when we're over there, we're also supposed to be imprinting on these people or giving them the opportunity to understand our American values, so that they understand that they can be like us. They don't have to be us, but if they want what we have, our security, our prosperity, our freedoms, then they're going to have to make the sacrifices we do. And I don't think any of them are really willing to do that. They all just bow down to the biggest bully, but yet we're still there. And I've heard people say that America should have never got involved in World War II. Are you freaking serious? Do you realize what the world would be like today if we didn't save the world? And that's what we did. We saved the world. I got in an argument with a guy from England saying, you guys didn't do any of the work. We did all the work. I'm like, oh, really? Well, hey, you know what? Let's go back in time and stop Lend-Lease and see how well you do, right? This is America, and I'm proud of our country. Despite our flaws, all these people want to dredge up the past and say, oh, we're so bad for something we did 200 years ago. We weren't even alive then. Every country's got stuff. And there's going to be people 200 years from now, if there's still a country left, that are going to look at today and go, what were you thinking? Okay. You learn from the past, you improve because of that and all that. But these are all great American values. And these other countries don't have that. And when we're overseas, we're not just trying to keep the peace and stop the fighting and build nations and form future allies. But I think we're also trying to bring that message. And sometimes that takes a long time. And sometimes what we do takes more than 5 years or 10 years or even 20 years. But there is a reason we do it. Now, I'm not saying it's all benign. Okay, there's politics in the background, and that's BS. There's people making money in the background. That's BS. There's some people that seem to think that every war we fight is directly over money. There have been some wars that were directly about money, like the American Civil War. Okay, but not every war is about money. Sure, there's some money involved, but there are people out there that seem to believe that, you know, we're fighting this war so that defense contractors can get fat. And it's like, if you really look at how little money there is going, it's not worth fighting a war. There's more to it than that. But because there's variables involved, and because there's a lot more people don't understand their history, and they don't understand politics, and they don't understand the psychology and sociology of other cultures, and they don't understand all of these things that they actually teach officers in the military so that they can be leaders when we're overseas fighting people with a different ideology and dealing with a different culture and trying to look at the big picture and stuff. America, as long as we're a superpower, we're going to keep doing this. And if some spoiled brat from Saudi Arabia doesn't like Americans in their country, keeping their country from getting invaded by their neighbor, and decides that years later he's going to make the Americans pay by trying to take down the symbols of America's financial might, And when that fails, he's going to try again, and then he's really going to teach them a lesson. Well, that's on that individual. But I wouldn't go back in time and stop the first Gulf War from happening because of 9/11. I would have done a better job of trying to stop 9/11 from happening to begin with. But America failed at that. And unfortunately, that has happened before. Look at the Spanish-American War. There are people today that say that the USS Maine wasn't sabotaged, that the boilers simply blew up due to a technical malfunction, or the Maine didn't strike a mine. It would, the boilers just exploded, and we fought a war over that. The Gulf of Tonkin incident. The first day they can confirm it. The second day they can't confirm it. And what happened? The White House exploited it to increase our involvement in Vietnam. We were already there, right? And you can sit back and be an armchair historian and look back at this stuff and argue it. And if somebody today wants to look at 9/11 and say America got what they deserve for being in the Persian Gulf in 1990, 1991, screw you.
Really?
But we make mistakes sometimes when we're overseas. Sometimes we're not there long enough. Sometimes we're there too long. Sometimes we make allies. Sometimes we make enemies. Look at what happened after World War II. We beat the snot out of Germany and Japan, and they're two of our strongest allies. Look at England. England, we fought a war to become independent from them, and then they tried to take us back, and we kicked their butt. And they're one of our strongest allies, even though we disagree with them on so many things.
Yeah.
So things change over time. I would like to see a day where we can have peace in the Middle East. I don't know when that's going to happen or if that's ever going to happen. According to the Bible, it will never happen. I would like to see a day where we can really count on these allies. I can remember being over in Turkey. Those people were our biggest ally in the Arabic countries. And those people were only in it for the money. I mean, but it's better than nothing. Saudi Arabia, our allies, but they were really in it because they wanted America to foot the bill for their defense. They got all that money. They didn't want another nation or a group of nations to come in there and take it, but they didn't. Without the American presence in Saudi Arabia, and that's still there today, they would not be as well protected as they are. And they're some of the biggest crap bags over there. They should be the ones apologizing for 9/11, not Americans. But yet here we are. And at the end of the day, we have to try to find a way to get along in this world. These are other sovereign countries. We may not agree with them. Turning their country into a sheet of glass is not necessarily the answer either, although we have the ability to do that. And some of these countries need to realize that. But it's difficult because that's a very big idea. And some people's minds, won't let their minds get big enough to take in all of the good with the bad, take in all of the things that are just a part of it. It is a big picture, people. And 9/11 was just something a day in the big picture. And I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but it's there and it's never going to go away. We are the world's police force, unfortunately.
Yeah, we got
a
a
lot
of
of cases. I
in.
believe that we shouldn't be the world's police forces, and this is the way that I look at it. If there's a problem in that country, then those people have to have the courage to stand up and fight for what they believe in instead of involving everybody else. Because that's right where we're at. We've got another Vietnam going right now. This thing will never end because people keep feeding it, keep feeding it, keep feeding it. And what has this so-called president just done? Handed the enemy billions of dollars of equipment. Granted, some of it's not going to be able to be repaired. Some of it's not going to be able to be utilized because they don't know how to use it.
But
why do you think that they have kidnapped people and held them hostage? They're looking for people that can do that work. And as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Biden committed high treason. And he's still in office.
I really feel that we should have had and again, I don't want to divert from 9/11, but with everything in Afghanistan and weapons and stuff like that, I really think that, if the fact was that those weapons were left behind for the Afghan army to fight against the Taliban, we should have had a contingency plan or a backup plan in case they decided to bail, blow up those caches or whatever, get those items out or do something to to prevent those weapons from getting in the hands of our enemies. As for them not maintaining it, I'm sure they've got resale value to the Russians and Chinese that can reverse engineer and make their own.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And Travis, there you go. You're pointing out, this is what I mean by some of the things that happen in the big picture that are mistakes. Okay. We had the opportunity to deal with Osama bin Laden after he tried using the truck bomb to bring down World Trade Center. Okay. And we had the opportunity to gradually get out of Afghanistan and not leave anything or anybody behind, and we failed. There are all kinds of things that happen where we fail. I'm not excusing Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, or fill in the blank with whatever politician you want to put in there, no matter what letter is by their name. It happened. It happened. Yeah. I'm not saying it's right, but it happened. And when you move forward into the future and you look back at the past, you're supposed to be able to learn from the past and say, let's not let this happen again.
Exactly.
If you're in another country trying to do the right thing, and there's some radical with the resources to attack us who makes it known that they are going to make us pay for being their country, we need to take care of that. If we leave and we don't have an exit strategy, or our exit strategy kind of
fizzles out.
Or equips our enemy, then look at what happened in 1975. This is 1975 all over again. We didn't learn, did we? And that's because we're not teaching history, we're not studying history, and people don't want to listen to history. If you put it in a movie and embellish it, they'll watch it, right? Mm-hmm. But they really don't want to look at the dirty. They don't want to hear that this war was actually fought about money, or that this war was fought about idealism, or this war was fought over oil, or this war was fought over steel, or this war was, they don't want to hear that stuff. They want to hear that, but at the end of the day, that's just the truth of it. And 9/11 is an opportunity for us to learn and us to say never again. And these people who died that day and afterward, like you were pointing out in the pre-show, of all the complications and all the things, the suffering, it's an opportunity for us to take a negative and say, let's learn from this and let's never let it happen again. But
that's the way it's supposed to be.
Look at what is going on, and look at the fact that people don't want to remember. People don't want to. At what point are we all gonna? Are we all going to live long enough to see where they're going to have a 9/11 sale at the store? I tell you what.
I was thinking if they're already doing, furniture sales on Memorial Day, gun sales on Memorial Day.
Well, and see, Memorial Day is so far displaced from it. People don't remember that it was about remembering the people that didn't make it home. And then, Veterans Day used to be Armistice Day and all this other stuff. I don't know that I necessarily have an issue with a Veterans Day sale, not because I'm looking to get a good deal, but Patriots Day needs to be left alone. I don't think it should be a national holiday. It should be a day of remembrance. And I hope like heck, I'm not going to see a sale on Chevy trucks on Patriot Day, because I will be sick to my stomach.
I don't want to make a joke out of this, but I do remember it was either like 4th of July or Memorial Day sale that there was a local Mitsubishi dealer had all their vehicles on sale for 4th of July. I'm like, didn't you guys make Zero bombers that killed? I'm just checking. I'm just asking, Yeah.
No.
So it's kind of
Yeah,
ironic.
but that's the irony.
That was a long time ago, right?
No, that's the irony, but that's just it. Mitsubishi made the weapons that the Imperial Japanese Navy used to attack Pearl Harbor. But now you can buy a Mitsubishi, and that's we can heal as a nation, and we can heal as a world. We can be friends with people who used to be enemies. We can do this sort of. It's just like owning a Mauser. You own that Mauser, somebody's going, you got a Nazi gun that was used to, hold up, dude. This is a piece of history. I'm not anti-Semitic, or I'm not a nationalist socialist or anything. This is just a piece of history. What I do with it is I remember that, the war was fought with this. 2 wars in some cases was fought with this, or even multiple conflicts after the fact. And that's a piece of history. The fact that I collect it and preserve it and maybe even use it for something good is an example of how we can move on past these differences, past these conflicts.
Right.
I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, but yeah, you know, Travis, no, you're not making a joke. You're actually pointing out a legitimate fact.
It's always kind of bothered me, you know. It's just kind of bothered. But here I am. I own a Mosin Nagant, a Russian rifle that is the reason why my family had to leave Czechoslovakia 60 years ago as a communist invasion. You know, and here I've got a Mosin Nagant and I make videos on it and I clean it and talk about how awesome it is to shoot. It's like that could have been used to force my grandparents to leave their home and abandon their business. You know, because that's what happened. You know, and that's just weird. Just kind of how history is. Now, AWAG makes a very important point, and this is something I want us to talk about. So AWAG says patriotism to me is one country, one people, despite our differences, advancing everything that makes America great. There's none of that anymore. Now, without using the cliche expression, make America great again, how do we, can we, what do we need to do to get this country unified? Where do we start? Where does an individual even begin to be a good person and bring that spirit back, or to try to tear down those barriers that have been put up between us as people? Where do we begin? I mean, me, I try to be a good person. I go to work. I care for my neighbors. I pay my taxes. I just try to be a good person in the community. I think that's a good way to start. But where do we go? What do we do to try to bring back patriotism or a drive for America first in this country? And me even saying that is going to fire up people that are on the left. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about us together as citizens. We can agree to disagree, but how do we make life better for everybody? I mean, that's what I want to know. That's a question.
Well,
what do we do?
I got a very simple but very, very, very difficult thing to think about.
Okay.
You want to unite people in this country? You get rid of the hate. Get rid of the anger. That's nearly impossible. I know I got a lot of people saying that's impossible. You can't do that. You can't overcome hate. It's an emotion. You get rid of hate by forgiving the people in the past. That's how you get rid of it. You start with your own families. You forgive your mother for what she's done to you when you was being raised. If you're from a separated family like I am, you forgive both of your parents. After you forgive both of your parents, then God removes that hateful attitude your mother instilled on you when you was born and gives you back the spirit that belongs to you. Get rid of hate, anger, trying to think of the word here, racism. If you get rid of these and you could stand before God and say, I've done it, and be meaningful about it, He will change the attitude of many. Not all. Because there's a wide road and there's a narrow road. But it's up to people to make the proper choices before this can happen. And getting rid of anger is one of the biggest ones.
I think we need to be woke to people that actively try to divide us.
Yes.
There's a positive woke, a realization you need to have as a person where you see what somebody does and you realize that that's simply to motivate a separation because it's going to promote that person's position in some way, shape, or form. You know, I think you need to be aware of that, and you need to be, awake to what's going on in this country. And I'm not picking on any one person, political party. I'm just saying that you need to, don't just be swayed by what you hear in the news. Don't just be swayed by what somebody says on Twitter. Educate yourself. Look into people, understand why people do what they do. Be aware of that. And then you won't be a victim of those emotions. You look at it from the outside. Oh, well, I don't know. Yeah. Jason, where do you think I'm going with this?
Well, it's easier to hate than it is to help. Yeah. And it's easy to get someone to hate someone, and it's much harder to get someone to help someone else. That's right. So we are divided, and one of the common things I heard here today is we don't see us being united again like we were on September 12th. Again, because we're so divided. There's forces and powers that be that want us divided, and they're stronger, more powerful than us.
Right.
So, I just don't know how you get us all united again. The only way is if we all suffered something, a pain like 9/11 was, where we all suffered it together regardless of who you were. But we're so divided now. If something happens to a certain group of people, the rest of us aren't even going to care. So there'll be no united again. I think that's what's in play. I think that's what people want. It's what the powers that be want. Everything's changed so much from 9/11. You just can't even comprehend everything that's happened on the daily and yearly basis since then. The way our government treats us, the communication that we have with our government, the people's, just paying attention, and all the propaganda. You know what I mean? So it just, everything about trying to comprehend it all, it leaves me confused. And every bit of 9/11 confuses me. Why did it happen? Who actually did it? What did we do about it? And what changed since then? And then with what's happened here in Afghanistan, it's all confusing. It really is to me. So I'm just kind of left in a fog right now. I don't know where America's going to be in a few years. We don't know what the news headlines will be tomorrow.
That's right.
I guess all we can do
I'm
is,
just seeking for the answers, but I'm just trying to keep my mind open and try to acknowledge what I do know and what I've learned, and just move on. I don't know how to influence others. I don't know how to find the truth when the truth is hidden so deep these days. So, today I think, the best we can do is not remember the country, but remember the people that actually we lost that day and that we lost since then. They have more questions than we do, and they probably have less answers.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is why today's special. It's tough for everybody. There's so much involved with it, and the conversation can go a million different directions, and we're strong enough, and we're persistent enough to keep the conversation going. But I don't think we'll all have the answers.
No.
We'll just learn how other people see it and other people deal with it.
Right.
And so all we're going to do is learn about each other.
Yeah.
But I don't think the truth and the answers will ever be found.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's like I mentioned earlier. I might not look at an ethnicity with the same eyes that I used to, but I don't hate them because they didn't know what they was doing. That sounds a little odd, but it's true. If they'd stopped and really thought about it, they didn't really know what they was doing, how they were going to affect future events or future generations. But I do not hate anyone. I might dislike their ways, but I don't hate them.
Yeah, not to reflect on everything bad and negative. We did come together at that time. And like I said, I personally, after the attacks happened, I felt anger. When I first heard them mention bin Laden could be responsible for this, I was angry. I knew who bin Laden was. I'd known maybe 50% of the history that we'd been with him. I was angry. I wanted revenge. I think we all did. There was some united things, and there's some other points in history that I think were maybe not wonderfully special, but significant moments that happened right then and there. Like, we all remember, you can close your eyes right now and you see the second plane hit, right? No, who forgets that? But there was also when they put the flag draped over the Pentagon to hide the damage. That was a good moment. When the flag got raised out of the rubble, that was a good moment. But one thing that, because like I said, I was angry that helped fear it, just, look for revenge, was when President Bush was there and he said, "I hear you. And the people that tore down these buildings are going to hear from all of us." I think that was a powerful statement from a president of the United States. Like, you don't remember much that any president said. You know what I mean? Right. You remember FDR, and you'll always remember George Bush.
Right.
So, those were moments that, we ought to keep remembering those too.
Right. But remembering is only half the battle. After you remember it, then you've got to remember the next time that something like this is going to happen. History's going to repeat itself until we get it right. A lot of people don't like to hear that being said, but I'm sorry, that's the way that it is. That's the way it's been designed. If you keep screwing up on doing whatever you're doing and you know what's wrong, it's not going to change anything. So you're going to keep getting taught the lesson until you learn it.
I don't know, guys. I mean, like I said, I think all we can do is try to be good people, try to care for our neighbors, try to care for our country, try to bring some love back to this country. And, you don't have to like the next person next to you, but me, I just, you do what you want to do and, live your life. And
today should be
me personally, then that's fine. Then as long as it doesn't affect me personally, you live your life, you do whatever you want to do. I don't really care. Squibble, what's up, man?
Today should be a day where people go about their lives, because it is just another day in some ways.
Yeah.
But for the events that go on today, when they're broadcasts, or when people are making speeches at them, or when people want to stop to reflect. If you're at work and you want to stop and have a moment of silence every time a plane hit or a building collapsed or something like that, your employer should let you have that. And I know there'll be somebody that's milking it to get a 2-minute cigarette break. That's not a moment of silence, and that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
And if somebody's at a podium making a speech, don't talk politics. Don't even talk current events unless they're relevant to 9/11, something we discovered 20 years later or 30 years later, 50 years later, something like that. Don't use this as a way to push your campaign. If it's an election year, don't do anything disrespectful to those people who died or who experienced it or whatever. Now, if somebody who experienced it, if a firefighter wants to tell a story about that day that maybe seems to be a little bit off color, whatever, they experienced, I think they more than earned that right or something like that. But that's a part of the event. That's a part of history. That's a part of a perspective. It's part of whatever. But if you want to be out there on a day like today, burning flags and calling this country bad and doing all this, if you're a politician who's going to try to exploit this, and that's just disrespectful. That's wrong. Today should be a day where we remember that America can set aside its differences and America can be a great country. Right now, people are at each other's throats over something where you have science, politics, and opinion. And the science isn't proven yet. The politics are looking to exploit it, and everybody's got an opinion on it. And that has created this division. And everybody's trying to capitalize on it. Well, I shouldn't say every. There are lots of people trying to capitalize on it who have something to gain off of that. Those very people, our leaders, should be the ones today going, we're not going to talk about a pandemic. We're not going to talk about vaccines. We're not going to talk about Dominion machines. We're not going to talk about any of that today. Today is about America. I may have a difference of opinion than you. but we both have the right to be here. That's America. And that's what they tried to take from us on this day 20 years ago, and we didn't let them do that. And that should always be our foundation, our stepping stone. Moments like this in time, 9/11, Pearl Harbor Day, and other events in history where America showed its resolve. But people have lost sight of the fact that we have all of these points in time to prove that we can be different, that we can coexist, we can still be the greatest country on this earth. And it's just that's maybe the best thing we can bring out of this. It was a bad day in history. It was a bad day for a lot of people. People are going to have to deal with this. You know, they're still continuing to deal with this, but yet we can glean something good out of it. A chance for us to go, all right, stop everything. We're all still Americans. Yeah. I may not like you, you may not like, but we're all still Americans. Let's not forget that on this day, people remembered that. And every year on this day, let's at least try to take this day to remember that.
Yeah. Kevin June sums it up for us. Love conquers all. Can we be united in mutual respect? I'd love to see that. I mean, is it really? Yeah, once again, it's going to take a lot of effort, I think, for us to get it back to where it was before. But we're all, I mean, we're good people. You guys on this panel are good people. There's a lot of good people out there, and unfortunately, you don't get to see that enough. You know, in the news and the media, you just get the anger and the hate and the emotion. But there are generous, good people out there, and that's all I can say is we just need to try to keep that in mind and try to maintain this country to be as, you know, as great as it is, and maintain, you know, what we can, and try to only improve over time. You know, it's all we can do is try to bring it back. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So I'm going to go ahead and let the panel go ahead and say a few final words. And, you know, there's a lot going on today. People need to have their day. I think they need to have their time. So let's do that. Squib, any final thoughts you want to say before we go?
I know this show kind of departs from the normal Caliber Corner, but I'm really glad that you did it. I'm glad that, you know, we all got a chance to talk about our opinions about 9/11 and talk about where we were that day. And that's all part of remembering, and that's all part of patriotism. So thanks for doing this.
No, that's fine. I wanted us to think about the people. I wanted us to think about our reaction to it, because we're the survivors. We're the ones that have to go on and make this country into what it's going to be. You know, I mean, after going through all this. And so I just, that's what I wanted it to be. I didn't want to get into conspiracy theories. I didn't want to get into what we saw, you know, like the documentaries and how this and that. I just wanted to make it a time for us to just talk. I mean, I really haven't had just a sit down and decompression session on 9/11 ever. I don't think I've ever just sat down and just talked to people about what's going on. It's been good to hear everybody's stories and how everybody was affected out in the chat. I appreciate you guys participating. And again, everybody has their own emotional reaction to it, and we're all going to have our own thoughts and feelings on it. And that's fine. We can do that because we're Americans. That's what we do, right? But again, we just need that mutual respect for one another, because we're all in this little box together, right? And we've got to make it work. Jason, anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, special show, man. I've been thinking about 9/11 for at least a week or two. Kind of just weighing on my thoughts a little bit, man. So it's good to get out and talk about some things. Yeah. And I don't know. It's just hard to say. It's hard for me to say something to everybody out there. I mean, I want to say have a good day and enjoy yourself, but I just don't know how to say it. So I just appreciate being here. Appreciate listening to everybody, and you know, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, if anything, it's going to give us some time to kind of just reflect and meditate on the moment, and just think of where we want it to take our lives from here on out, because we're going to hear about this every year, and it's always going to bring back these emotions and feelings, and you know, what do we got to do to make things better, you know? Single shot, anything you want to say before we go, bud?
Yeah, nice of you to put something on like this, Travis. I honored to be here.
Wasn't planning on the technical issues, but we made it work the best.
Oh yeah, so that happens.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you know, I appreciate you being open and honest and sharing your thoughts and feelings with us. And it provoked a lot of reactions from the chat. I think that we had some good discussions on it. And, you know, what do you want to say, man?
Well, you know, like I said, if we can overcome hate and anger and all of this other stuff, we're going to be starting in the right direction at least. That's the only way we're going to get that spirit back to reach across the table or stand next to your neighbor, whoever it is, shake the hand. You know, if people have problems with emotions, then there's a site that I'd like to suggest, if that's okay with you, Travis.
Yeah.
It's called silentprayer.video.
Okay.
Silentprayer.video. Go to it. Sit down when you're not distracted. You got a minute, check things out. Check this site out. Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson does this. It makes you realize what's going on in your life. And it will allow God to come into your life and set you straight. If you're doing your hooping and hollering, praying, just go ahead. Go do that. But in the aftermath, sit down before you turn in for the day, before you start your day in the morning, and do it to the sign and do the silent prayer. Just be still and realize everything around you that's happening. Let God take over and show you in your life what you've got to do. Silentprayer.video.
Okay.
Everybody take care. God bless. Be safe. America moves by truck. And thanks for the invite, Travis.
Hey, no problem, man. That's fine. I appreciate you sharing with us and being honest. And I think we need, that's what we need. We need honesty in this country, and we need to kind of have a realization about where we need to take things, right? All right, guys. So this has been episode number 203. I'll give a little shout out. So YouTubers, or those of you watching on the YouTube side, there's comments I did want to address because I didn't want to take it away from the discussion at hand. I wanted to focus on what we were talking about. And so you had some great points you guys made out there. Anybody watching this, you can check out the chat. There's a lot of emotions out there, and I think you understand people better if you see how they feel about things. I know it opened me up to a lot of you that are out there watching on YouTube today. So we'll give a shout out. Okay, a somber one. X Adam 1, Mad Sexy, TPC, Kevin June. Vladimir Putin's out there saying Yankee man always out of shape. Cannot go shirtless on a horse in a sexy pic. Give me a horse. Give me a horse. I'm in Nebraska and I can ride a horse. I'll take my top off. I care less. Tacos and French fries out there. Black Bear Forge watching today. AWAG was with us. Firefighter, thanks for joining in and telling us your story. Sunny Guns, hey, it's good to see you. Thomas Reese out there. AWAG 1000, Ron 2A Matters. Misfits Darling, again, had a great conversation today. Ozzy Osbourne out there talking about where he was when 9/11 happened. MKJO, first one shot out there too, telling his story. M. Gabriel, Rolling Trip, Defense Dad. Fubar Bandolero out there today too. I want to thank all you guys for watching today. Gun Loving Grandpa, all right? And Gun Snob was the first one to check in on the second broadcast. So I'll put a link to the first part of the video on this video once it posts over on YouTube, so you can go back and watch it if you didn't get to check out the first 20 minutes because we had a massive tech issue pop up and the stream got shut down. I don't know why. But anyway, that's it, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us for Caliber Corner. Shout out to SS Pond for supporting the channel and keeping us going. Make sure you guys check out rnldisplays.com. They make some really cool displays for your AR-15s. Do check them out. And meantime, I want you guys to have fun, be safe, and as you know, we will talk to you soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, Alicia.